Hello guys, my name is Jacob and in today's episode I would like to talk about nations that Poles hate and Poles like. As you can see, I'm not on the street because I'm feeling sick. I had a high temperature on Friday and Saturday, but who cares and who asked? Let's begin with the video. To not talk too long, I will start with Russia. As you can know, Poles rather don't like Russia. Why? It's because our history. To understand it, we have to go to the 18th century, because in these times were three partitions of Poland, in which Russia was the main enemy. They grabbed a lot of eastern stuff, like those Lithuanian territories, and we were under their control for 123 years. The first partition took place in 1791, the second one was in 1792, and the last one took place in 1795. In those times there were two uprisings. The first one was the November Uprising, which started on the 30th of November 1830. 1830. The first one was the November Uprising, which took place in 1830, to be accurate, on the 30th of November. Of course, we lost it. How could the small nation like the Kingdom of Warsaw win with the big Russian Empire? But yeah, we tried. The next one took place in 1840. The next one took place in 1863 in January, and its name is the January Uprising. Yeah, we fought for the higher autonomy. I have to say that the higher autonomy was in the Austrian part of Poland. I don't know how to say it. In territories that Austria grabbed from us. It was, of course, it was a little bit of history from those times from me, because I don't want to talk so long. I want to talk about it in smooth style and to be interesting for you guys. A lot of Poles were transported from Polish territories to Siberia during the occupation of our lands. And during the Great War, Germans, Austrians and Russians wanted to convince, is that a correct word? I will type there. They wanted Poles to fight on their side. Russians said that the future with them is better than with the Germans, and the Germans said that future with Germans is better than with Russians. And after all of Polish fights, like Poles were even fighting each other, because one camp were supporting Entente, and the second camp were supporting Central Powers. So yeah. And after all of those fights, Poland became independent, and we had to fight for our borders. The Western stuff isn't that important in today's episode. The more important stuff is a war between Poland and Soviet Russia, which began in 1919. It all seemed that Russia will win, but they lost the Battle of Warsaw, and then we pushed back them to the east. there was also a conception of creating a country which had to include Poles, Belarusians, and Ukrainians. But after the treaty, which guaranteed border between Russia and Poland, not all of Ukraine were under the Polish occupation and same as the Belarus. So the conception wouldn't work. The next thing is the Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact, which was signed between Soviet Russia and the Germany. They signed it on the 23rd of August. And in this pact, Germans said that, okay, we'll take the Western Poland and the rest of that we want, and you won't ingurate in our stuff, and we will not ingurate in your stuff. And on the 1st of September, Germans attacked us, and on the 17th of September, Russia just ignored a non-aggression pact with Poland and just came to the east to liberate Ukrainian and Belarusian people. So yeah, during the occupation of those territories, a lot of Poles were again transported to Siberia for work for Soviet Russia. Woohoo! And there is also a Katyn massacre, and the Russian Federation admitted that in those times they did the massacre. A lot of Polish soldiers were killed there. They just got shot in the head. I mean, those are informations that we learn in school, and that's all. During the Second World War, of course, Russians were on the Polish territories, and they liberated us by robbing watches from Poles and raping and destroying towns. Like as I said in the previous video, Russians destroyed some part of the old town. And of course, they said that we have to be communists, and we stayed in this regime for a lot of years to 1989. After the Soviet Union collapsed, our relations with Russia weren't that good again. To be honest, every nation has to have an enemy, a political enemy. And even now our Russian government and Polish government argue about the history of our nations. Okay, so I think that's all of Russia. Of course, there are more things, but I think that things I said are the most important. So the next nation that Poles just rather don't like is Ukraine. Ukraine. For example, there were a massacre of the Polish people on the Volyn territories. Its name is Volyn massacre, and just a lot of Ukrainian people killed Poles because they wanted to seize their territories after the Second World War. World War. Yes. And Poles also don't like Ukrainians because a lot of them migrated to Poland like in 2014, 2015. Why? Because there was in 2014 began a conflict between Ukraine and Russia, right? Russia claimed Crimea in 2014, and also a conflict in the Donbas region began. And of course, Ukrainians wanted to live and work in a safe place, so they decided to migrate to Poland because there is not that bad salary. I mean, the minimal salary is higher than in Ukraine, and Ukrainian and Polish people are mad because Ukrainians just steal their jobs. Of course, when they migrate from Ukraine, they want to work here, but for some Poles, it's very bad. In their opinion, Ukrainians are just occupying places for work. The next one are Jews. I mean, a lot of Poles rescued Jews in the Second World War, and now some Jews say that it's not true. Of course, it is, but of course there were Poles that sold out Jews for money, but those were like 1% of population. During the occupation of Germans, there was a name for Jews, the other name for Jews. It was a Jew commune, Jew commune. It was a propaganda to change mind and don't like Jews. Like it was a propaganda for Polish people. You must know that in the 1930s there were zones where only Jews could study, like Polish people and Jews were in the separate zones. That's also an anti-Semitic stuff in Poland. And which nations do we like? Of course, countries from European Union, but some Polish say that Germans should pay money for what they did in the Second World War, and just don't like Germany, for example, and France and UK for not helping us in those moments. But I think that we have good relations with the European Union, but they're not that good like with the United States of America. I even would say that we just lick their asses. Like our president signs everything that Trump says to sign for him. Like Trump says, just sign this, and our president just does it. Of course, and for example, we pay more for United States than other countries of NATO do, and we have more American soldiers in our country than the other European countries. I think it's bad because we should more integrate with the European Union than with the USA. Because we're only their pawn, and I would even say that we're becoming a puppet of the United States. How could I say nothing about our brothers from Hungary? A lot of if you ask Paul who is your brother nation, they will probably say that it's Hungary. We have a lot of same things in history. Like we had a lot of good relations in the past. Now we're, for example, in Grupa Wyszehradzka, which is this in English. I can't pronounce it. We also helped them in the previous wars, and for example, they were allies of the Germany during the Second World War, but they didn't want to attack Poland. They helped they helped us a little bit in the Warsaw uprising. And I think that I will end the video here. I said almost all that I know. Thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed and learned some stuff. And see you in the next video. Type in comments what do you want to see. Goodbye.